All right, and we are back. 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 Welcome. All right, and we are back. And today we're back with another reaction video, and we're obviously back with our Biblaridion coverage. And right now we're on episode 7. That is Return to the Return to the Waters. Gosh, my bad, guys. I'm out of it right now. I thought it said return to the oceans. It's Return to the Water, okay? Return to the Water by Biblaridion. So we're going to check this one out. I'm excited. We're getting back into the oceans. We're going to see some animals evolve back into, ocean predators, if you will. It's going to be a great time. So if I remember correctly and obviously this isn't always going to be based off of ours, but I know in our evolution, we had things like whales that were land animals go back into the sea and become whales that we know of today. So I wonder, which one of these species. I'm imagining the really tanky one. We might see a variation of them split off and do their own thing in the water. Maybe become whales. We might get some super or omni predators or omega predators or space marine predators in there somehow. So sorry, I really just got into Warhammer 40k like this week, guys. So this is, if I make some Warhammer references, that's the reason. Shout outs to the salamanders. So so guys, we're gonna go ahead and get into it. If you haven't already, make sure you like, you comment, you subscribe. You never know what I'll put out next. And also, if for some reason you're just watching this and you haven't subscribed to Biblaridion, you're just watching my reactions for some reason, I'm going to need you to go ahead and make a change in your life. First change, go ahead and hit that link that's going to be in that description down below. And then go to Biblaridion channel, subscribe to him, comment down below, tell him I sent you. Maybe he'll subscribe back. You never know. So fun stuff there, guys. That's your homework assignment. That's for you to do, not me. That's all you. So yeah, guys, with that being said, I do have to mention this one last thing. I don't think there's any record of me ever mentioning this before, so I'll go ahead and just say it right now. That is that if you guys don't like, comment, and subscribe, more importantly, subscribe, YouTube will come through that door right over there, and they will. Alien Biospheres Part 7, Return to the Water.
This alien planet is brought to you by Campfire Technology. Okay. More on that later.
Shoutouts to Campfire,
Over the past few episodes, we've explored how our alien organisms have colonized and conquered the terrestrial realm.
True.
From humble beginnings as unassuming amphibious swamp dwellers, the chemophytes, lophostomes, and osteopods have diversified into a myriad of clade.
Oh, hold on. The chemophiles...
dwellers. The chemophytes,
chemophytes, okay. These are my, my third favorite group. I will say I have grown accustomed to some of the chemophytes here. I'm starting to like them. They start off a little weird, but you know what? They grew on me just like they grew on the earth.
Stomes and osteopods have diversified into a myriad.
These guys, obviously, these are my second favorite. There's a lot of classics in here. You guys know which ones I really mess with. Shout outs to this guy down here. Astaphoria. You guys don't come. You guys only come here for me mispronouncing things. I know it. So there you go. There's a little bit of it for you.
Of clades, adapting to every niche the land has.
My guy. Okay, these are actually my guys. These are my guys right here. Shout outs to this one down here, Barapata. Yeah, he's a beast. This also, pretty much all these Titanopoda, like these guys are pretty dope. I really like this branch. They really start getting big, and they're just like, imagine like a predatory elephant spider mix. Yeah, that's why.
Yet presented them with. But in the 150 million years since they emerged from the water, their far-flung relatives in the sea will also have been diversifying. And it's about time that we revisited the ocean to see what developments have occurred since we last saw them. This alien planet is brought to you by...
Whoa. Why did you do that? Who told you to do that? Come on now. Come on now, microphone. We can't be going through this now. This is crazy. The microphone just rewound the video, guys. That is a new level of disrespect that my microphone has given me that I have not. I've never. I don't even know what to say. Microphone, me and you gotta have a real conversation after this.
Flung relatives in the sea will also have been diversifying. And it's about time that we revisited the ocean to see what developments have occurred since we last saw them.
With me, Mike.
To begin with, the basic structure of the oceanic food webs will remain much as it has been for many millions of years.
Okay.
Sunlight provides energy for countless billions of microscopic phototrophs, or phytoplankton, while the atmospheric hydrogen sulfide sustains equally prolific swarms of chemotrophs, which I'll hereafter refer to as chemoplankton. All of these autotrophs will be food for tiny zooplankton like the anthostome larvae and the tachypods, and these in turn will serve as an abundant food source for larger zooplankton like the gastrozoan larvae. But the niches of pelagic nekton will remain almost exclusively occupied by the acanthopods, which first appeared almost 50 million years before the first terrestrial ecosystems, when one clade of early polypods evolved to swim by undulating their bodies from side to side, rather than using their limbs like all other clades of polypod. As briefly discussed in Part 3, the first acanthopods likely used anguilliform locomotion, where undulations pass along the entire length of the body to generate thrust, much like eels, lampreys, and some knife fish. Anguilliform swimmers tend to have elongated bodies of fairly uniform width, so that all parts of the body displace an equal amount of water.
I don't know why, but I'm thinking in my mind they're going to turn into giant sea serpent-like creatures. That are like huge.
Their bodies also tend to be flattened in the direction of undulation to increase surface area and therefore give them greater leverage against the water, essentially turning the whole body into one big fin. Perhaps some basal clades of anguilliform acanthopods still survive to the present, which we'll call orthorhynchids. But anguilliform swimming is a fairly unspecialized form of locomotion, and is most efficient at slow speeds. So as the acanthopods diversify to fill the countless nectonic niches, it's likely that many clades will evolve to become faster. One way to increase swimming speed is to concentrate the lateral movements towards the posterior end of the body. Subchorangiform swimmers only use the rear 2/3 of their bodies to generate thrust, keeping the anterior third comparatively still. Because the majority of the work of displacing water is done by the tail and the hind portion of the body, the fins tend to primarily occur along these regions, while the main body is usually shorter, stiffer, and rounder than an angular.
You know, this is crazy. I've never looked at a fish diagram before to know that, like, what part of, you know, like the fins, most of the fins are on the lower 2/3 of the body. They just have one fin at the top just to kind of like, that probably keeps them like in the area that they're trying to go, like that's like their angling arm, and then these are like their like motion, like actually generate motion arms, like fins. Like this one is just to keep them on the right path. These are actually, you know, this whole part of his body is exclusively using to push him forward on that path. Yeah, I'm not a fish guy. I don't go fishing, so like this is some new information for me, guys.
Anguilliform swimmers. Although the anguilliform swimming used by the orthorhynchids requires slightly less muscular energy to maintain, subchorangiform swimming grants greater speed, essential for escaping
Brother, what is this? I like this fin. See, just stay in the water a little bit longer. You can also be cool.
Predators and chasing down prey. So if a clade of acanthopod were to evolve this form of swimming, they'll have a distinct advantage in competing for pelagic niches. The earliest representatives of this new clade, which we'll call hadrorachids, will likely take advantage of their speed to hunt small nekton, but the most plentiful source of food in the oceans are the vast swarms of plankton that teem near the surface, which one clade of hadrorachids may specialize to feed on exclusively, initially preying on large zooplankton like the gastrozoan larvae, before adapting to feed on smaller organisms. The setae on their feeding arms may grow into long, tightly spaced bristles to sieve tiny food particles out of the water. Having such large, feathery feeding structures will increase drag and therefore make swimming less efficient, but since, by definition, plankton can't swim away, these hadrorachids won't need a great deal of speed or mobility.
Whoa, yo, shoutouts to Cabot Art. This is incredible. This is an incredible piece of artwork here. I like the details of that. Like how they really animated these fins, like the what did it just like the hairs and stuff that really captured it to filter through. Oh my god, this is just incredible imagery. Like I feel like this right here is something that should be used as like a somebody's wallpaper on their computer. This should be somebody's wallpaper on their computer, and everybody be like, "Yo, what is this thing? I've never. Did you just make this up?" And they're like, "Wow, you know how to draw."
Ability to feed effectively. They can simply swim through the clouds of plankton with their feeding arms open to get all the nutrition they need. And because they have a virtually inexhaustible source of food, they'll be able to attain very large sizes, and the larger they get, the more plankton they'll be able to ingest. And over millions of years,
Oh my god! Once he added the color to this thing, this is actually next level cool. And I do, I really like this, and I do understand the reasoning already because it's just like sharks. I'm imagining, where the bottom is white because of the creatures looking at you from below. They're gonna confuse you with the light coming out from up above. So then you're going to blend in and almost be invisible from if they're looking at you from below you. And then from above, you also match the color of the waters, when you're not when you're submerged. So people above you can barely see you as well. So this, oh my gosh, I don't know. Something about adding the color scheme to this. This looks cool as hell, bro. I'm sorry. This looks super freaking cool. Like I don't, the animals in the sea already. This is the first one I'm seeing, and I'm already loving it.
This feedback loop may produce some of the largest species in the ocean, as has happened in many clades of pelagic filter feeders on Earth. However, somewhat similar to the situation with the lophostomes on land, the hadrorachids will still be limited in their maximum size by their respiration. The acanthopods breathe by extracting oxygen from the water with the gills that line their bodies.
Yeah.
The larger their gill surface, the more oxygen they'll be able to obtain, and therefore the larger they can grow. However, the square cube law once again...
Our good buddy, the square cubed law. The square cube law, guys. So, just in case you guys forgot that I'm an expert at this, thanks to you guys, commenters. Hold on. Let me slow that down. I'm an expert because of the subscribers. All you non-subscribers that you guys gave, give me some useful information by subscribing. But all you non-subscribed people, that information, it's like. It wasn't even great, but the subscribers, they had some really good information there. So you guys, it's something about hitting that subscribe button that just makes your information a lot more tangible and feasible and just better all around. It's just whoa, you're like a scientist now. Before you were just some high school dropout, but now you're just like a real bona fide square cube law knowing guy, or girl, woman, So hey, with the square cube law, things get big and it takes more energy. there's a lot of guys. There's so much into it. I really don't even have time to get into it right now. Just know that I know exactly what I'm talking about when I am bringing this up right now. I know what I'm talking about.
Comes into play here, as the surface area available for gas exchange will become smaller in proportion to their body size as they
Yep. I was just saying this stuff.
Grow larger, until at some point the gills will need to become impractically huge for them to get enough oxygen to maintain their size.
Exactly.
This means that species that breathe using gills, like the hadrorachids, will have an upper limit on their maximum size, which animals like the whale shark and the extinct Leedsichthys suggest is somewhere around 15 meters or so. Despite this constraint, these giant filter-feeding hadrorachids will become the biggest animals in the oceans and monopolize the niches of large filter feeders. We'll call them tylopods. Meanwhile, another clade of hadrorachid may specialize for feeding on...
I don't know about tylopods. Feather feet. I feel like they need something a little bit more like, like angle, like something about the fin, something about like the sharpness of his fin should be in there, like a dagger feet or something, like a sword foot, like something like spear spine. I'm just throwing it out there, guys. You also you think of a couple, and if you want to also put the what would that be, like the Greek equivalent of their name in there as well, go ahead and throw that in there for me. I'm thinking like sword fin, you guys, you help me out with the
nekton, a lifestyle that may involve another change in their mode of swimming. Whereas subchorangiform swimming involves around 2/3 of the animal's body length, in chorangiform swimming, thrust is generated by rapidly oscillating only the posterior third of the body. This specialization in swimming style is strongly correlated with a change in body shape. The smaller the portion of the body dedicated to propulsion, the more streamlined the rest of the body becomes, favoring a fusiform or pointed oval-shaped body, and a muscular tail bearing a large crescent-shaped or lunate caudal.
Whoa, hold on. Yo, shout outs to all the scientists who actually figured this out. Again, I'm not around fish enough to know this, but like maneuverability over speed, this is actually really cool information. Somebody really was like, yo, why is this fish so much faster than the other one? Let me figure this out. And then they did it. I don't know how long it took. I don't know the amount of research it took or researchers, but enough people over enough time in our real lifetime went from why is this fish smaller or faster than this fish to being like, I know all of fish theory. Like, I know how fish move. I know their anglers. I know all about like what type of fins used to do this. Like, let's just say the human mind is actually incredible, and with the power of friendship over time, plus the human mind combo, we're undefeatable. We're like, human as a species, humans, we're like Batman. Give us some prep time. I feel like we're unstoppable.
Fin. This provides a further increase in speed, but comes at the cost of maneuverability. Unlike anguilliform swimmers, which can execute sharp turns by adjusting the position of their elongated bodies, chorangiform swimmers have comparatively little control over their direction of movement. To help them steer and maintain stability, chorangiform swimmers usually rely on their fins, which in the case of our hadrorachids may evolve from the limbs that line their bodies, which have long since lost their role in propulsion. When moving through a medium like water or air, an animal needs to remain stable along 3 axes of rotation. Firstly, the animal needs to control roll, or side-to-side teetering, which can be achieved by evolving fins that stick out perpendicular to the body. Okay. If positioned towards the front or back of the body, these fins also help maintain pitch, or rotating forwards and backwards. Finally, yaw, or turning left and right, can be adjusted with dorsal or ventral fins, which typically occur posterior to the animal's center of gravity. Additionally, the 4 feeding arms common to all acanthopods will present unnecessary drag and decrease their speed and swimming efficiency. So to make them more hydrodynamically optimal, this clade may evolve to keep their feeding arms pressed together into a streamlined cone. You'll probably notice that with all of these constraints taken into account, we've ended up with a body shape quite similar to that of many fish species on Earth. Because of the hydrodynamic pressures exerted by a medium as dense as water, the basic fish shape that we're familiar with on Earth is likely to be common in pelagic nekton on Earth-like planets throughout the universe. On Earth alone, it's independently evolved in cetaceans, marine reptiles, and even sea slugs. Another adaptation strongly correlated with a pelagic lifestyle is countershading, where the ventral side of the body is more lightly coloured than the dorsal side, meaning that when viewed from below, they blend in with the light coming from the water's surface, and when viewed from above, they're camouflaged against the darkness of the deeper layers of the water column. This colour pattern benefits both predators and prey, and so is likely to be widespread among many oceanic clades, including among our clade of chorangiform swimmers, which along with their speed and streamlined bodies will help them to become the dominant clade of pelagic...
This one looks like a torpedo right now. I like this one. It looks like a freaking shark torpedo.
...predators. We'll call this clade the Teleopterids. From here, different clades of Teleopterids may specialize for feeding on different types of prey, which is likely to involve modifications to their mouth parts. Another pressure imposed by the density of water is that, when a predator lunges at a prey item, the resulting turbulence may push the prey out of the predator's reach. Aquatic animals on Earth have evolved...
What? Hold on now. You try to bite something and the force and the pressure of you being just big pushes your food away? What type of torture is this? They don't even have opposable thumbs or anything. They can't grab it. They have to bite it. Like, this is... So would you have to have some type of, like... You gotta, like, suck in as you're trying to bite things?
A variety of different feeding mechanisms to minimize this risk. Some, like groupers and bass, use suction feeding to draw the prey and the surrounding water into the mouth.
Oh, they do.
While others, like the slingjaw wrasse, goblin sharks, and dragonfly larvae, have extendable jaws that can dart forward to grab prey without producing appreciable turbulence. If a clade of Teleopterids specializes for feeding on small nekton, they may converge on the latter solution. The middle pair of feeding arms may become streamlined harpoons to dart forward and impale prey.
What? Oh my god, that's actually pretty dope. So you just speed at them, freaking stab them, and then use these two to like, meow, meow, meow. Like that's actually pretty. That's gonna be crazy.
With their setae evolving into sharp, backward-angled spines, while the lateral arms may broaden into robust, tooth-riddled appendages to restrain and butcher prey once it's caught and to pass it into the mouth. This sophisticated armament will equip these hadrorachids to feed efficiently on small nekton, and will earn their clade the appropriate name Dorapods.
Okay. I mentioned spear feet earlier. I think this is a good time to add it. This is more like spear face, though. Like more like spear face. Am I right? Chat. Am I right? Comment section. Am I right? You guys are. Yeah, I know you're already commenting like a bunch of stuff. But I just want you to know, in the person who's commenting right now, telling me that I was wrong about whatever you're commenting about. I want you to pause it right here to let me tell you specifically. I was right. You didn't think about it hard enough, and there you go. Now, obviously most of you aren't doing that because you understand that I was right about everything in this video so far. But for the person who is thinking about comments and like, you were wrong about minute 5 or whatever, and I'm gonna be like, no, I was right. You didn't think about it hard enough, and then you're gonna rethink about it right now, and you're gonna be like, whoa, he was right. Oh my gosh. And then now you're going to try to backtrack on the comment. So, I'm trying to save you some time. Don't even write the comment. Just change the comment now to be like, hey, you're incredible, you're always right, and you do know more about the square cube law than non-subscribed people. Obviously, I give all the subscribers that everyone who subscribes knows more about that, except some of the people who don't. But the people who don't subscribe, they definitely don't know more.
Clade of teleopterids may specialize for hunting larger prey, which may entail yet another change in their form of swimming. The final and fastest variation of body-driven swimming is thunniform swimming, wherein virtually all the propulsive force is provided by the tail fin, seen in many large predatory species like tuna, barracuda, and some sharks. This form of swimming is also correlated with an elongated, torpedo-like body that allows for rapid acceleration, which will give these teleopterids a substantial edge in competing for the niches of macropredators. Most of the prey species that form these teleopterids' diets are large enough to not be significantly affected by turbulence, so evolving a hydrodynamically optimal feeding mechanism isn't as much as a priority for these macropredators as it is for smaller species like the sauropods. Instead, the setae lining their feeding arms may evolve into rows of serrated teeth to deliver powerful bites and to rip chunks of flesh from their prey. These teleopterids may gain supremacy over the pelagic ecosystem soon after they first appear, and by the time they've established themselves as top predators, they may be large enough to rival the filter-feeding tylopods in size. We'll dub them temnopods. Faced with the competition from all these new clades, the orthorhynchids may not fare as well, as their anguilliform design doesn't grant them the necessary speed to compete for the niches of active predators in the open ocean, and so many of the pelagic orthorhynchids may be driven to extinction. But some species may still find niches in environments like the shallows along the coasts. In many such places, the marine snow and abundant plankton may cultivate huge reefs of sessile anthostomes, providing a habitat for a unique assemblage of organisms. In some ways, the differences between the reefs and the open ocean is analogous to the differences between the forests and the steppe. In the open sea, where there's virtually no form of cover or shelter, it pays to be optimized for speed, but the complex landscape of the reefs favors specializations for maneuverability. In this regard, the orthorhynchids have an advantage, as their anguilliform swimming allows them to change direction more rapidly than other forms of body-driven swimming. Many species may retain a long, slender body shape to help squeeze through confined spaces among the stands of anthostomes, but other species may further optimize for maneuverability with yet another change to their manner of swimming. All of the methods of swimming we've discussed so far involve the body and the caudal fin in the production of thrust, but an alternative commonly found in many reef-dwelling fish is to instead achieve propulsion by beating the fins back and forth, keeping the body and tail comparatively motionless. This is called median paired fin swimming, and is generally slower than any of the various forms of body-driven swimming, but the chief benefit that it provides is a much more precise control of movement, which is essential when it comes to navigating the complex terrain of the reefs. Although most acanthopod clades have lost the use of their fins for propulsion and have instead invested in body-driven swimming, some of the reef-dwelling orthorhynchids may re-evolve the limb-driven swimming of the ancestral polypod, developing the fins lining their bodies into 7 pairs of broad paddles. Many species of reef-dwelling fish also exhibit a laterally compressed body and enlarged dorsal...
Is there something about being a reef fish that makes them more colorful? Or is this all just like a mating thing where they're just trying to, they have eventually evolved and got more colorful as a way of trying to show out and be, get a mate? Because I just want to know. I just want to know what the coloring of this thing is going to look like and what the explanation is going to be. So this is going to be interesting.
On ventral fins, giving them a much greater control over their turning, which the orthorhynchids may emulate by evolving thin, leaf-shaped bodies with tall fins running along their dorsal surface. Another likely result of adapting to life in the reefs is a change in coloration. In contrast to the countershading frequently seen in pelagic swimmers, reef-dwelling animals often have coloration that helps them blend in with the surrounding terrain, so most orthorhynchids may have color patterns to camouflage them against the sediment and the calcareous turrets of the anthostome colonies.
Thank you for telling me, sir. I really appreciate that. I was just saying it, and then you mentioned it, so okay, this is exactly what I needed.
While the basal clade of orthorhynchids, which we'll call tenipterids, will rely on the cover of the anthostomes to keep them safe, these more derived forms, which we'll call remipterids, will use their agility to evade predators. It's worth noting that each of the modes of swimming we've discussed here are likely to evolve independently in many of these clades, just as how on Earth many unrelated groups of fish have converged on similar swimming methods to suit similar lifestyles. The straightforward linear progression I've presented here is fairly simplified for the sake of clarity, and in practice any given clade won't be restricted to only one form of swimming. The reefs will offer the orthorhynchids protection from larger predators like the temnopods, but they'll have to share these environments with other creatures. One clade very likely to find a home amongst the reefs are the marine tentaclostomes, relatives of the forms that gave rise to the lophostomes. To distinguish them from their terrestrial cousins, I'll refer to the marine forms as lithostracans. Like the ancestral tentaclostomes, these lithostracans aren't very well adapted for swimming, and so can't compete for predatory niches in the open ocean, instead mainly thriving in benthic environments on the seabed. Species in more open habitats may protect themselves from predators by retracting their limbs into their calcareous shell, but in the reefs they may gain more protection from hiding among the stands of sessile anthostomes. In this case, having a large, inflexible shell may become a handicap, as it will prevent them from squeezing through narrow spaces. So much like the malacoforms and the coleostracans on land, some of these reef-dwelling tentaclostomes may lose their shell to give them more flexibility, and to let them access tighter,
I feel like this is going to become like a squid or something, I don't know.
more secure hiding places. These spaces may also serve as ideal spots for launching ambushes, which they'll rely on for catching prey much faster than themselves. We'll give these shellless creatures the fitting name anostracans. Another likely resident of the reefs will be the marine sarcopods, which, once again, to distinguish from their terrestrial relatives, will give the name coelopods. Much like the lithostracans, these creatures don't have any overt adaptations for swimming, but instead avoid predators by burrowing beneath the sand. The setae lining their limbs are embedded in vibration-sensitive cells, or mechanoreceptors, to detect movement in the surrounding water, alerting them to incoming danger. The majority of coelopod species are benthic detritivores, feeding on the marine snow and the other organic matter among the sediment, but some species may expand into the many other niches offered by the reefs, possibly even evolving predatory feeding habits. These species may increase the number and sensitivity of the mechanoreceptors along their cephalothorax, with the anterior setae elongating into antenna-like structures, while the mouth parts may adapt for grasping and masticating prey. Lying in wait within their burrows, they may use their sensitive mechanoreceptors to detect vibrations in the water above them. When prey passes overhead, they'll erupt from under the sediment and dispatch it with the tooth-like setae on their oral tentacles. But specializing for the niches of ambush predators may put these coelopods in competition with the anostracans, which may mean that the two clades won't exist in the same ecosystems, or that they'll specialize for hunting different species of prey. We'll call these predatory coelopods trichopods. Many of these marine...
I ain't gonna lie, trichopods, for an animal that, like, kind of tricks you into going near it, or, like, acts like it's not there, that's a good name. It's like a double meaning. Also, shout outs to all the people who are making these drawings and everything. Obviously, I really love them, and because I like artistry, in general. I respect it. So, like, obviously the thumbnail is going to be one of these arts, made by this. So, again, shout out to the artist, Dark Sunny Zone. I think this right here is just beautiful imagery right here. This is incredible.
Marine clades may also have representatives in freshwater habitats. The various lineages of acanthopods are likely to have independently colonized the inland rivers and marshes, and we'll cover their diversity in more detail in future episodes. But some freshwater inhabitants of particular note are the native tentaclostomes. These species, descended from the same amphibious clades as the terrestrial lophostomes, may retain their ancestors' amphibiousness, able to come out onto the land for short periods, but still needing to return to the water to breed and to stave off desiccation. While most marine tentaclostomes are benthic predators, the line that led to the amphibious clades descended from more generalist species that supplemented their diet by feeding on the early chemophytes. This being the case, many of the freshwater and amphibious species that survive to the present day may be omnivorous, or perhaps even herbivorous. They may graze on the low vegetation along riverbeds and mudbanks, using their long eye stalks to look above the waterline. To distinguish them from their fully terrestrial and marine counterparts, we'll call them mysostomes.
Okay.
The sarcopods may have some surviving amphibious representatives as well. These forms trace their ancestry to swamp-dwelling scavengers, and so their diets may tend more towards carnivory. Notably, they will have diverged from the osteopods before the evolution of internal skeletons, so they won't have any bones and thus won't be able to support themselves on land very effectively. Also, because air is about 800 times less dense than water, vibrations don't propagate through it as appreciably, so their mechanoreceptors won't function nearly as well when on land. On top of that, with the proliferation of the osteopods, the amphibious forms may have trouble competing for terrestrial niches, so all of these factors may consign most species to a life spent predominantly in the water. Many may feed on the mysostomes, using their powerful, robust mouthparts to crack open their shells. Once again, these species will constitute their own clade, distinct from the fully terrestrial osteopods and the marine colepods, and so to differentiate them, we'll call them metaxopods. All of these aquatic clades will flourish over the 120 million years following the invasion of land by the chemophytes, lophostomes, and osteopods, but the steadily changing atmosphere and the subsequent shift in climate will have far-reaching implications for the pelagic ecosystems. The drop in temperatures following the decrease in atmospheric carbon dioxide levels will disrupt the ocean currents, depriving many areas of the sea of oxygen and nutrients, and the diminishing hydrogen sulfide levels will make chemosynthesis less efficient, and so the once abundant chemoplankton may experience a substantial decline in their diversity. Some clades may even be forced to invest in other forms of nutrition, evolving saprotrophic or even fully heterotrophic lifestyles, ensnaring and ingesting other plankton with long ciliated feeding structures. This revolution among the plankton may result in the collapse and restructuring of many of the pelagic ecosystems. In many areas, plankton may not occur in large enough quantities to support the filter feeders, and without them, many of the predatory acanthopods that feed on them may be driven to extinction. It will take several million years for the acanthopods to reclaim their former diversity after the climate stabilizes, but as they do, they may face competition from some rather unexpected adversaries. As well as affecting the oceans, the climate change event will concurrently reshape the terrestrial ecosystems, changing the dominant landscape from lush forests to open steppe. In the last episode, we discussed how some of the osteopods and lophostomes adapted to this new environment, but not all the terrestrial clades will have representatives on the plains. Some groups may not be adaptable enough to compete for niches on the steppe, instead remaining within the surviving regions of forest. Some of these areas, particularly around the equatorial coasts, may still receive enough rainfall to form large swamps.
Yo, shoutouts to ATM LVE. This is so incredible imagery right here. It's like I don't know what I would do if I was walking through this path.
And marshes, and these sorts of environments may prompt some of the terrestrial inhabitants to expand into aquatic niches. On Earth, many species that descend from fully terrestrial ancestors have secondarily adapted for life in the water. These sorts of animals are sometimes described as amphibious, but this label can be a bit problematic because it's also used to describe actual amphibians. Alternatively, these animals are also often described as semi-aquatic, which is also somewhat problematic as it's quite difficult to rigorously define and encompasses a very broad spectrum of lifestyles, ranging from animals like water voles, which occasionally enter the water to feed on aquatic vegetation, to animals like seals, which spend virtually their entire lives in the water, only coming onto land to breed and to evade predators. On our alien planet, the first step in the transition to a semi-aquatic lifestyle may occur when some of the wetland-dwelling clades undergo adaptations to help them wade or swim across the waterways that pervade their habitat. Some of the most prolific forest dwellers are the adaptable platodonts, most of which spend their lives among the branches of dense foliage. But in the wetlands, stands of trees may be separated by stretches of shallow water, which the platodonts will need to cross periodically to reach new feeding areas. Their elongated limbs, primarily adapted for climbing trees, will make them awkward swimmers, but as they evolve to spend more time at ground level, their legs may become shorter and broader to more effectively serve a paddling lifestyle. And once they evolve to swim effectively, they may expand their diet to include the many food sources that the water offers, like the mysostomes, metaxapods, and freshwater acanthopods.
Okay.
To specialize for preying upon these clades, the platodonts may evolve a more streamlined body shape and the ability to hold their breath for several minutes at a time. As adaptable generalists, comfortable both on land and in the water, these platodonts may be a common sight around many wetland areas across the supercontinent, living in a similar way to otters, muskrats, and platypuses on Earth. Let's call them copitarsons. Along with small generalists like these, semi-aquatic adaptations are also occasionally seen in megafaunal herbivores, like hippos, capybaras, and the extinct desmostylians, so some of the analogous herbivores on our alien planet may see similar developments. While the line leading to the titanopods may thrive on the steppe, some of the more basal clades of megalobrachids may remain within the equatorial jungles, where they'll need to adapt to a climate of high rainfall and regular flooding. Like the copitarsons, these megalobrachids may begin their semi-aquatic transition by adapting to traverse areas of shallow water, which will have the added benefit of granting them access to the aquatic vegetation that grows along the riverbeds. At present, no other large animal feeds on these plants, and so the lack of competition may encourage these megalobrachids to specialize for the niches of large semi-aquatic herbivores. Their elongated pedipalps, once used for reaching upward for food among tree branches, may now be repurposed for reaching downward to forage for underwater vegetation. Their spiracles and sensory organs may migrate towards their dorsal surface, allowing them to breathe and see above the waterline while the bulk of the body is submerged. Although not quite as big or specious as their steppe-dwelling cousins, this radiation of megalobrachids, which I'll name prenobrachids, will still constitute some of the largest megafauna within the swamps and marshes. And with such an abundance of prey in the water, some predators may be incentivized to adopt a semi-aquatic lifestyle as well.
Okay.
On the open plains, the Deinignathans may get outcompeted for predatory niches due to their bulky, inflexible bodies not giving them the speed to chase down fast prey. But they'll still survive within the remaining pockets of woodland, using the cover of the ample vegetation to ambush large prey. In this regard, any areas around lasting sources of fresh water will form ideal hunting grounds, as prey will routinely come to these areas to drink. One early radiation of Deinignathans may evolve to live in these areas exclusively, possibly co-evolving with the prenobrachids, which may serve as their principal source of prey. At this point, they'll live in much the same way as crocodiles, and as such, they may converge on similar adaptations. On Earth, the crocodilian body plan has independently evolved many times among completely unrelated clades, suggesting that it's an optimal design for semi-aquatic ambush predators. One of its signature characteristics are the long yet robust jaws, which are streamlined for efficient swimming and capable of delivering incredibly powerful bites to restrain prey and drag it backwards into the water.
Yeah, but what was that thing where they can't like open it up or something, or like you can close their mouth really easily? Get out of here! Wait, what happened?
Suited for seizing large prey, making them somewhat pre-adapted to the niches of semi-aquatic ambush predators. Like the prenobrachids, their eyes may move towards the top of the cephalothorax to let them sense prey above the waterline, and their spiracles may be repositioned on the upper abdomen to let them keep the majority of the body hidden beneath the water.
Okay.
This line of Deinignathans, which I'll call Odontognathans, may rapidly achieve widespread dominance of the freshwater habitats following their first appearance, after which they may diversify into a number of more specialized forms. Most of the early Odontognathan species will be macropredators, feeding primarily on terrestrial prey and other semi-aquatic animals like the prenobrachids. We'll call these forms Trachognathans. But as the group diversifies, some species may avoid competition with their larger relatives by specializing to feed predominantly on the freshwater acanthopods. On Earth, animals with equivalent feeding behaviors are called piscivores, but once again, we run into a bit of terminal...
Why do we call them this? An organ... It's fish. Okay. I mean, I guess fishcophores. I know I didn't pronounce that correctly, but I did that on purpose, ladies and gentlemen.
Trouble here, as strictly speaking, this term is used to describe animals that feed specifically on fish, and there are obviously no fish on this alien planet. So for the sake of exactitude, I'll coin the term acanthivore to describe their lifestyle. Just like the predatory teleopterids, these acanthivorous odontognathans will need to find a hydrodynamically optimal way of feeding. Because it's a lot harder to get a grip on prey when in water, semi-aquatic piscivores often have noticeably different mouth parts and dentition to their terrestrial relatives, frequently involving elongated jaws with interlocking pointed teeth, and sometimes additional sharp protuberances lining the inside of the mouth. Likewise, these odontognathans may forego their ancestors' robust jaws and broad serrated teeth, instead evolving narrow, slender mandibles with prominent needle-like teeth. Since most of the job of catching prey is done by the elongated mandibles, the pedipalps may shrink to reduce water resistance, though they may still be used to masticate prey once it's caught and to pass it into the mouth. To let them move more effectively in water, they'll need to evolve an efficient means of swimming, but unlike crocodiles, the odontognathans' inflexible limb girdles, common to all synischians, may make body-driven swimming difficult to evolve, so it may be more likely for them to adopt a style of swimming similar to the median paired fin swimming seen in the remipterids, propelling themselves with back and forth strokes of their powerful limbs. To prevent their airways from flooding when they dive underwater in pursuit of prey, they may evolve specialized muscles to let them constrict their spiracles, similar to the palatal valve seen in crocodiles or seals' ability to open and close their nostrils. This clade of odontognathans, which we'll call dolichognathans, will be smaller than the macropredatory trachognathans, but will still be capable and prolific predators of the acanthopods they share the water with. And because they no longer feed on terrestrial megafauna, they won't necessarily need to stay within close proximity to the land, so some species may expand their feeding areas into the coastal shallows. Initially, they'll be prevented from exploiting pelagic niches by the temnopods, which have been the dominant oceanic predators for over 70 million years. But when the climate changes and the marine ecosystems are thrown into chaos, many of the top-level niches will be left vacant, which may provide an opportunity for the coastal dolichognathans to colonize deeper waters. Despite their semi-aquatic disposition, the freshwater odontognathans will still need limbs suited for terrestrial locomotion, as the variable environments of the wetlands may occasionally demand that they emerge from the water. But the coastal species won't need to come onto land nearly as often, and so can afford to adapt more completely for an aquatic lifestyle.
This is what I was talking about at the beginning. The land animals are going to evolve back into sea animals after being evolved from sea. So they're going from sea to land, back to sea. You love to see it.
Their limbs may become powerful flippers, making them slow and cumbersome on the land, but greatly increasing their speed and maneuverability in the water. In this style of limb-driven swimming, roll, pitch, and yaw can be controlled by adjusting the position of the flippers, so stabilizing fins aren't as important as they are in body-driven swimming. To reduce drag, their pedipalps may reduce even further, possibly being held flat against the mandibles to form a sort of streamlined beak, very similar to the conical mouthparts of the teleopterids. However, these coastal forms, which we'll call pelagotheres, will be held back from becoming fully aquatic by their one and only tie to the land. Being osteopods, their developing young are contained within a leathery ootheca, which must be laid out of water or else oxygen won't be able to diffuse through the membrane to reach the embryos. This means the pelagotheres must be forced to drag themselves ashore to breed, and thus they need to retain some ability, however limited, to move around on land. But this constraint can be circumvented with one major development. If the female is able to retain the ootheca within her body until the young are developed enough to hatch, they can be birthed directly into the water, and thus the mother will be freed of the need to make landfall.
Do it. Come on. And again, guys, I know if you've made it this far into the video, you've got to understand that I know a little bit about evolution. I know they can't just, I'm just going to do this one day and it happens. No. But I'm hoping that this is what the evolutionary plan is for that, Biblaridion is, laying out for us. I hope that's the path we're going on here.
This form of live birth is subtly different from the kind seen in mammals, because the young aren't connected to the mother via a placenta or an equivalent organ, and the mother provides no additional nourishment to the young during their development. Instead, it's more akin to the method of reproduction seen in some species of snakes, sharks, and amphibians, where the eggs are simply withheld by the female until they hatch internally. This mode of reproduction is sometimes referred to as ovoviviparity, and we'll go into it in much more detail in a future episode. The Pelagotheres that evolved this innovation will now be able to completely forego any capacity for terrestrial locomotion and evolve for a life spent entirely in the water. One immediate advantage that this provides is an increase in potential body size. On land, an animal can only get so large before it collapses under its own weight, but in the water, the effects of gravity are counteracted by buoyancy, and therefore aquatic animals can reach much larger sizes than terrestrial ones.
Yo, that makes sense. The square cube law, it works. It's just, the atmosphere also affects it. You see, all you non-subscribed people didn't even know that. Shout outs to the subscribers though. You guys knew that for sure.
The egg-laying Pelagotheres, which we'll hereafter call actotheres, are restricted to sizes at which they can still support themselves when they come ashore. But with the advent of live birth, the fully aquatic Pelagotheres will be able to reach sizes so large that if they ever did find themselves on land, they'd be crushed under the weight of their own bodies. This increase in size will be complemented by their efficient respiration. As already mentioned, the acanthopods have an upper limit on their size imposed by their gill surface and the levels of dissolved oxygen in the water.
Yeah.
But the Pelagotheres' mechanism of active air breathing lets them take in much more oxygen than would be possible with the acanthopods' gills, letting them fuel body sizes even greater than the tylopods and temnopods. These Pelagotheres, which I'll call thalattotheres, will be the first clade to evolve a fully aquatic lifestyle from a terrestrial origin, and are destined to become the new masters of the ocean.
Yes.
From here, the thalattotheres may diverge into two lineages. Some species may evolve to feed on large amounts of small prey, eventually adapting to feed on the clouds of plankton, with their needle-like teeth evolving into a comb-like sieve to strain the water. And with such an abundance of food, they'll become gigantic and whale-like, replacing the tylopods as the top-level filter feeders. These forms may maintain flippers of roughly equal size, which provides a balance of speed and maneuverability, somewhat reminiscent of the bygone plesiosaurs on Earth. Based on this limb configuration, we'll call them Isopterygians. A separate clade of thalattothera may maintain a diet of large nekton, evolving into fast, powerful macropredators. These species may adapt
the sea dragon. Oh my gosh, that sounds cool.
Speed, generating the majority of thrust by flapping their second pair of flippers like wings. The frontmost flippers may help control and stabilize the enormous cephalothorax, while the hind two pairs of flippers may serve as rudders to aid in steering, making their style of swimming more similar to that of seals, sea turtles, and penguins. To contrast...
shoutouts to all the sea turtles out there. If you are a sea turtle and you're watching this video for some reason, shoutouts to you. I think you're really cool. And honestly, if you are a sea turtle and you're watching this, even let's say you're just at the zoo and one of your zoo owners or the people who work at the zoo just so happen to be like watching my video while they're like supposed to be tending to you, my animal, then I want to say shout outs to you. You're still a really cool sea turtle, or penguin. Shout outs to all penguins for no reason. I just want to throw, if you've made it this far into the video and you didn't think I was going to shout out penguins, I don't know. I really don't even know what to tell you. Like I know it's never happened before, but this is why you got to expect the unexpected. No shout out for snakes though. I understand, somebody came at me in one of the videos talk about, we need some snakes. And I'm like, gosh, here we go again. I get it. We need flying snakes now. I'm sure they do some great stuff for the ecosystem of where they live. But how about this? Keep flying snakes the flying F away from me because like I don't need to deal with that. I get nervous about non-flying snakes. Now you got to tell me there's snakes that'll just fly up out the air. Oh, I'm in a tree. Oh, now I'm on your back. What? No, I don't need that. I don't need no visual image of a snake in the air coming towards me. Like the thought of that is crazy. So I don't need the visual realization that that could actually happen. I need all snakes to be on the ground and also far away from me. So if there's one in the air and close, that's the exact opposite of how I want them to be. I want them to be on the ground and then far away from me. You could be in a tree, but just also keep that tree far away from me as well. So I don't know. I forgot where this rant was going, but yeah, shout outs to penguins and the first creature that I mentioned.
Them with their filter-feeding cousins, we'll call them anisopterygians. Faced with these new competitors, many of the larger canthopod species may be ousted from the megafaunal niches they've held for millions of years. But they still maintain the advantage of not needing to return to the surface to breathe, and so can survive at depths that are inaccessible to the thalattotheres. The sheer enormity of the oceans offers such a diversity of habitats, each one varying in temperature, salinity, oxygen, light, and numerous other factors, that it's difficult to speak of it as a single biome. But for our purposes, what we've outlined here will serve as an adequate picture of how the aquatic ecosystems have developed over the last 150 million years or so up to the present day. But while all of these developments are taking place, new environments are opening up across the supercontinent, some of which will demand unique survival strategies from potential colonists. In the next episode, we'll return to the terrestrial realm to see how our alien life forms evolve in response to extremes of heat and cold.
Nice.
Thanks to Campfire for sponsoring this episode.
Shout
if
out
you're
to
into
Campfire.
world building, you'll know how difficult it can be to keep track of all of your world's details.
Yo, shout out to Campfire. Are you an artist? Are you a storyteller? Are you a person who's entertaining like myself and you're like, hey, microphone, you almost did it again, brother. You tried to do it again, bro. And I don't even see. I wanted to have this conversation when the people weren't watching, but you're gonna make me have it right now, and this isn't good. Like me and you were supposed to be like this. Right now we're like this. I'm not messing with you right now. But anyway, shout outs to Campfire. This seems to be a really great site where you can help build all the basics of your story, get all the character information written down, get all the backdrop, what the environment's going to be, make it so it, like, if let's say you're building a story, like you're a writer and you're trying to build out the characters, this helps you build the world out before you actually finish writing the whole thing. So if you want to make Game of Thrones, you want to make the next Game of Thrones, you got to prepare. You got to know all the details of it. You got to create the language. You got to create the universe. You got to map it out, build everything. How much does your character weigh? 175 at 15, I don't know. Harry's kind of a big kid. But also, like, what else was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Let's say you're like a Dungeons and Dragons guy. You can, boom, all your character, all the information. It's all right there. Let's say that you want to be not a storyteller. Maybe you write movies. Maybe you want to write a movie. It's still all there. But Biblaridion, tell them Nick.
Pro is a writing and world-building software designed to help keep your project organized.
Look at this.
The standard package includes maps and timelines to manage your world's geography and history, tools for tracking story elements like plots, characters, and relationships, and an encyclopedia for other items of interest.
Look at this. Look, I said all those things, man.
But if you're a fan of the Alien Biospheres series and are making an alien planet of your own, you might be interested in the new world-building pack, which, in addition to including entries for cultures, languages, and religions, also has a page where you can tabulate your world's entire tree of life, as well as individual facts, statistics, and miscellaneous details for every individual species.
Hey, this is cool. This feels like I want to get way too in-depth on the thing that I'm creating, and not like too in depth, but like I want to be like if like let's say you're like really good at this type of thing. Like I don't I'm fumbling because I'm trying not to say the word nerd. I'm trying not to say this is like some really nerdy stuff, but let's be honest, it is. And I can say that because I have glasses. So, guys, if you are a nerd, uh, then this is going to be extremely cool for you. If you're a writer, this is going to be cool for you. And if you are a nerdy writer, this is going to be like heaven because then you'll get to really nerd out on all the stuff. And I say that like in a loving way. That's the geeky version of the N word. Nerd. I don't have. Yeah, trust me, I've been called both. They're just the easier one to deal with.
All of the features of the world building pack are included in the 10-day free trial, after which you can get Campfire Pro permanently for a one-time purchase of $49.99 US.
Okay, I ain't gonna lie. One-time price of $49 and you get to keep it forever. These days, that's actually a steal. I thought he was gonna say like, 200 or something, but $50 you get to do this forever. I'm not gonna lie. This may be one of the best. This may be one of the financially one of the better sponsorships I've ever seen on YouTube. $50 you get access to all of this stuff and all the premium features. That's kind of a steal. It's almost like if you are a story person, this is definitely like this is going to be one of the cheaper things to even do to like really build your worlds out, and like all the information you're going to get off rip and all the things that really help out. It's going to be so convenient. It's going to be it's worth double the price. I ain't gonna lie.
Permanently for a one-time purchase of $49.99 US plus $24.99 for the world building pack.
He threw out that extra $24.99. It's still a good value. But everything for $49.99 would have really been like, whoa, you did it. You did it.
If you're interested or want to learn more, check out the link in the description. Thanks also to the fans over on Discord who contributed artwork for this episode.
Thank you.
Links to the main server and the fan art server in the description. And a massive thanks to all the patrons, whose continued support makes videos like this possible. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Incredible. Hold on, let me see all this artwork here. Shout outs to all the artists. There was some stuff he didn't even put in the video that was great. I love it. Yeah, good stuff. Shout out to all the artists out there. You're doing your thing, guys. You were doing your thing when this happened. I need some artists, man. Who's gonna be in my downstream, my downline for artistry? Okay. Well,
this alien.
All right. Well, that was the video. Another incredible video, guys. I learned a lot here. I know this is one of those series where everything I'm gonna learn every time I watch one of these, I'm gonna learn something new. But I learned about fish today, things that I never even thought about to know, but now I know them, so that's cool. Yeah, I had a feeling something was gonna go back to the ocean. Now we got whales. Now we got the ones that have spikes in their face. They're just gonna go directly at you and kill you. Yo, this episode was better than I expected. Every episode I'm pleasantly surprised, and I can't wait for part 8. I'm excited for part 8. We're gonna be getting back to some harsh temperatures. We're gonna see some deserts. We're gonna see some snow. I want to see what the mountainous areas look like that even have snow, or is there going to be like a thing where the continent breaks apart and then they move into areas that would allow it to have snow and then desert? Like, are we going to get that, or is it going to be like, oh no, the snow is just like up in the mountain, it's always going to remain one supercontinent? It's because if it's one big supercontinent, the ocean is really big now. Like, and obviously our ocean is big, but it's kind of like the continents kind of break it up apart a little bit. But imagine just like one. It's just one ocean. I mean, it's just one. It's just big ocean incorporated over there. So, hey, we got sharks, we got whales, we got everything you need. It's incredible. I love it. And I got to see a land animal turn into a sea animal again. So I was right, as always. So, guys, if you made it this far into the video, as always, I do want to say thank you. I love you. Bye.